Okay, we're in. Can you hear me, Cottage Grove? You can nod yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool, thanks. Okay, tech crew, you can actually stop the music now. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes?
Are you like doing an essay for the midterm? Or is it a bunch of questions? What's it like? What are we looking at?
A midterm question. Okay, midterm is, we're in week 4. That's 3 weeks away. And what it consists of is take-home open book, because we're televised, so people taking tests on television is really boring. So we don't do boring here. So take-home open book.
Bunch of questions.
Yeah, it's basically like multiple choice based on the slides, your questions. Nothing that isn't in the broadcast or the books will be on the midterm. So you're covered. You're cool.
All right.
Hopefully you're cool, right?
I was wondering if it was like some weird essay or something. You're just gonna all of a sudden be like, okay,
No,
you're gonna write
don't
this
do
paper
essays.
on that. That would have been cool though. I think I did pretty good on the essay.
Okay, let's see here.
So if we have to email you our essay for this week to turn it in, do we do it on the Moodle site?
Send it directly to my email. I mean, you can send stuff by Moodle as well, yes. My preference is to do email.
That's on your syllabus. Oh, right.
That's in the syllabus, yes.
So, when are we getting our other papers?
So take your paper copy too.
Yeah, you can also give me a paper copy as well.
Get it printed out. Sign it to email.
My printout was almost, it was the day that the computers went down in the library. So I was using a laptop, which I never really used a laptop before, so I'm like trying to highlight stuff and I'm like getting all stressed out. And I'm like trying to like switch out the fonts and it was all screwed up. Like I think the font's off. I don't even know. I know the paragraphs weren't indented. I think the font might have been off. And then I got people behind me like, I need the computer. I'm like, I'm sorry. All the computers are down. It's not my fault. I needed it too, okay?
Don't worry.
I mean, anxiety's had in the library.
Don't stress. It's okay. Okay, let's start here. Where we left off. Where we left off was angel brain. So if we, just to briefly recap how the 4 brains, or the 4 parts of your brain that we'll just, for the point of, for the sake of argument and expediency, say that you have lizard brain, mammal brain, human brain, and angel brain. And they all have their role in addiction. But starting with angel brain is the last part of your brain to develop, and the reason it's called angel brain is it because it has a capacity for transcendence. That is, when, for example, a 12-step program is talking about you have to have a spiritual experience to aid in your recovery, angel brain is the part of your brain that specifically has that sensibility, that there is something bigger than yourself that allows you to access the strength to be able to overcome addiction. On a less cosmic framework, angel brain basically is able to overrule the other brain. So where lizard brain says, oh, this is the way we dealt with pain, let's do that. Think, do. Think, do. Can I eat it? Will it eat me? Can I copulate with it? That is, approach pleasure, run away from pain. Oh, this worked for pain. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that without thinking about the consequences, because lizard brain doesn't really think. All right? So when we're, for example, if you have been in treatment and they're doing cognitive behavioral therapy, obsessive compulsive behavior in psychology is think, do. Think, do. Okay? With no thoughts in between. Think about using, do it. Think, do. Think, do. So what we're trying to do, all right, look at that. Let's put some more thoughts in between that think before you do. Right? And it's very critical in terms of what you think about. As what will happen, for example, with, just briefly recap these, because repetition does work, right? Like the velociraptor, all right? Look, can approach pleasure, fear and flee pain, repeat pleasure. So with lizard brain, if you're on opiates, you don't necessarily think about, you're not getting pain relief and you're not getting high anymore. All you're doing is avoiding being sick. So you use to keep from getting sick, and that's all you can see. From a political framework, within the African American addiction and slavery model, right, an addicted population is a controlled population because all they can think about is the next dose, and they can't see that, oh, you're enslaved for money. So maybe you need to break out of that, and that means you're going to have to go through some of the pain and withdrawal. Well, lizard brain doesn't want to go through the pain and withdrawal. And all it sees is repeat pleasure. How do you act reflexively? Mammal brain, basically you're using peer group. This is why it's so powerful in terms of looking at who's around you when you use, and are you using with friends. And there are a number of addictive behaviors that play into this. Gambling, shopping, spending, chronic debting, using substances, eating disorders, all kinds of things. Who do you hang with? How is that reinforcing your behaviors? And then, mammalian brain. So the human brain, the neocortex. The neocortex gives us rational thought, and in addiction, what that's giving you is rationalizations about using. Well, I'm not really as bad as they are. I can control it any time. I'm not as addicted as, oh, look at those tweakers. I'm not that bad. Right? That's what, it makes up excuses for us because, the rational brain, the human brain is about thinking. So the thoughts that it thinks, nobody wants to look bad in their own mind, especially to themselves. And then angel brain. So basically, angel brain gives us each brain. So lizard brain exists. Mammal brain can overrule lizard brain. Human brain can overrule mammal brain and lizard brain. And angel brain can overrule all of them. That's what executive function means. It means the ability to kind of tell the difference between conflicting thoughts, determining good and bad, better and best, same and different, to look at future consequences. So this is the idea of being an adult. You can project into the future what's happening now. If I do this, this will be the consequence. And it's a critical piece in terms of human development because that is part of being adult, the ability to think into the future. An example I use is, we should have parenting training. And in my opinion, as a parent, we should have a parenting license. We have a license for everything else. Don't ask me who's going to administer that license, but think about, all right, maybe before if you're heterosexual, before you have sex, you should either, as a father of daughters, can this dude take care of you and the baby for the next 20 years? Well, I'm only 20 years old. No? Right. So if you can't answer that question now, maybe you should basically, no glove, no love. Okay, but condoms, of course, fail. So the idea is, look, in case of failure, are you an adult enough to reason about the consequences and take care of it yourself? As a father of daughters, I also say, look, you do not depend on no dude to take care of you. You have your own money. Harris women are professionals. Okay, that's the role modeling in our family. So not everybody does that, but the idea is being able to conceive of a future. And so if I use today, will this ruin my chances later? If a lot of businesses, for example, use pre-employment drug testing. In the trade, we call it an intelligence test. Are you smart enough to not use 30 days before you apply for the job so that you pee clean rather than having to go to some head shop and buy pee clean drinks or whatever, which is a sure sign of addiction? Are you smart enough, are you adult enough to not use for 30 days before you apply for this job? No? Well, boom, you get weeded out, so to speak. All right, so there's a link between the person's personality and the functions of the prefrontal cortex or angel brain. So the angel brain, the higher prefrontal cortex develops at age 15 to 21. It's associated with higher human virtues and the ability to imagine future consequences, as well as transpersonal, that is beyond the personal, and personal optimal outcomes. So the ability to say, when I'm affirming this in the suffering addict in front of me, I can basically say, look, if you want to be in this place, in a more recovered place, then you have to do these certain steps now. And I'll let you know about what's going to happen beforehand so you'll be prepared for it. For example, if somebody, is on the pipe, whichever pipe, crack pipe, meth pipe, whatever pipe, it is frequently a condition of such folks that they can't see beyond the next dose. And that, and they get tired of it, they come to see me and I say, okay, can't see you now, I'm busy, but I'll see you tomorrow as soon as you're ready, and between now and then, don't kill yourself, because I know you're going to use as soon as you leave here. Know that. Okay? Because paradoxically, you've made the step towards recovery. Psychologically, what's going to happen is you're going to use between now and the next time I see you. Now, I'm not giving you permission to use, but I ain't going to be surprised if you do. And then you'll get depressed because you use, and then it's hopeless. Don't kill yourself before you see me. Don't kill yourself after you see me either. Don't want my record spoiled. Not about me, but I'm saying, look. So I'm just walking you through the process of what I know you're going to go through. Having seen it, having been through it. And that gives people some comfort. So being able to conceive of transpersonal and personal optimal outcomes. Now, here's a nice book. It's on your book list. You don't have to read it, but The Molecules of Emotion is the book, and this is Candace Pert. She was in that movie, What the Bleep Do What We Know, etc. Now, what Candace did, in 1971, she discovered the opiate receptor. So for thousands of years, we actually didn't know how drugs work. We just knew that they did. And so in discovering the opiate receptor in 1971, she basically was able to give us an entire quantum leap forward in terms of the field. So as an example, because people have asked this before, which came first? Did the emotion trigger the release of the chemical, or did the chemical cause the emotion? So remember, when we went through neurotransmitters, and I only gave you 10 out of 85 that we've identified so far. And those 10 were associated with drugs of abuse. Now, before you use, those chemicals were in operation, and after you use, those chemicals are in operation. So one of the questions that were asked scientifically is, Okay. Am I horny before testosterone, or is the release of testosterone making me horny? Now, testosterone is associated with sexual drive in both male and female because both male and female make estrogen and testosterone. The hormones just act differently in our different genomes. Not genomes, our different phenotypes. Genotype is our genetics, phenotype is you in particular, your particular characteristics. All right? Which came first? Did the emotion trigger the release of the chemical, or did the chemical cause the emotion? So what Candace says is, your body is kind of like your subconscious mind. And she's saying this relationship is so intimate that the question actually doesn't make any difference. I mean, yes, your mind is kind of associated with your brain. And when we first thought about neurotransmitters, we thought it was just in the nervous system. But then we found out that these chemicals are all over the body and made by different organ systems too. So if you're angry and upset and you feel it in your stomach and ulcers and whatever else, butterflies in your stomach if you're falling in love, whatever, that has a relationship on your mind. Your body is like your subconscious mind due to this relationship of the molecules of emotion. There's a constant communication between the nervous system and target organs in the body. Now, one of the questions that comes up in terms of how you deal with this practically, and this becomes a recovery issue, which we'll talk about, but basically, if you want to look at if you or your loved one wants to basically recover from substances, how long does it take to recover? If it's meth, let's say 3 years minimum of continuous abstinence. Everything else, at least a year. Here's why. After the first detox period, which is anywhere from 3 to 5 days to a month for pot, your nervous system is adapting to not being on something. So, like, for example, the Harris rule of thumb for marijuana, all right? Because got lots of marijuana clients, and we're a medical marijuana state. So basically, you need at least 28 days to detox from the last time you used pot. Then you need another 2 to 3 months to get used to not being on pot. And another 3 months on top of that to get used to being clean and sober from pot, from the last dose. Right? So my rule of thumb is, if you cannot use for 6 months, and then at the end of 6 months not care you've been using for 6 months, it's probably not a problem for you. But get to 6 months first. Because a lot of people have trouble getting through a week, if not days. And I'm talking about pot. I'm not even talking about the other things. So even though pot isn't as dramatic a withdrawal syndrome for most people as, say, heroin or meth, it's still not insignificant. There's still a psychological as well as physical withdrawal because of this relationship, this communication between nervous system and the rest of the body. So basically, at least a year for pretty much everything. And you're not out of the woods. There's still triggers at any point during that year. But once you get a year, so it works like this. Once you can do a day, you can do a week. String 7 of them together. Once you can do a week, you can string 4 of them together, do a month. Once you can do a month, do 6. Or 3. Or 6. Once you can do 6 months, you're already halfway to a year. And then if your primary was meth, well, done a year, do 3. Here's what happens, though, because of this relationship in terms of neurotransmitters. Your body starts waking up to the fact that I'm not on anything anymore, and whatever feelings you had or experiences you had while using start coming up. You actually start having using dreams. Dreams where you visualize or you're dreaming that you're using. And they feel real to you. That becomes scary to folks. Wow, using dreams? Wow, I feel loaded and I haven't used. What should I do? Well, if you're in a 12-step framework, you go to a meeting or you talk to me or whatever. But I'm letting you know up front that will happen. Don't freak out. It's okay. It's just part of the recovery process. It's your body waking up, and because of this relationship between the chemicals and your body, once the external chemicals are gone, your body's remembering different things and bringing them up for you to look at them and deal with them and let them go.